Welcome to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf, a space for women healing from betrayal to reconnect with their mind, body, and soul, one page at a time. I'm Rachel Strong Smith, a betrayal trauma coach who's walked this path myself. In each episode, we'll explore books that speak to the heart of recovery, books that validate your experience, offer insight, and remind you that you're not alone. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about coming home to yourself. So, whether you're in the thick of survival or finding your way back to solid ground, pull up a chair. You're in the right place. Hi, welcome back to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf. We are so privileged to have Jeni Brockbank with us today. Hi, Jeni.
Hi, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. She wrote a book called Healing in Christ's Light from Patterns of Sexual Betrayal. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jeni. She lives with her 6 children in northern Utah, where she is a betrayal coach and a podcaster. She delights in applying the gospel of Jesus Christ to everyday life. She loves to float on lazy rivers, snuggle her children, and have long lunches with amazing friends. Jeni loves the color red, which I
Look at
wore
you
that on
wearing red.
purpose.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored. That was kind of you. Should have worn
I
red
thought of it.
too.
And then we would have matched. I did. I was looking through and I'm like, oh, there's the shirt. And she says it reminds her that she is individually important to her Heavenly Father. And also, Jeni is, are you the founder, CEO? What is your title of Her Wings Unfold?
So I'm the founder and the executive director of a nonprofit called Her Wings Unfold. And just to briefly mention, we do some really cool things in the space of like domestic violence and things like we run trauma sensitive 12-step groups. And really, it's for anyone who's experienced another's abuse, addiction, adultery, or abandonment. And as such, we've seen amazing growth and beautiful things that have happened with that. So, anyways, their meetings are free. If anybody ever wants to come, love to hang out with you in a meeting.
Mm, thank you for that. And I'll be sure to have links in the show notes so you can connect there because it is a beautiful organization. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's still in its beginning stages.
It's
So,
brand new. Yeah, it's just a
yep.
baby. Yep.
Yep. And so you're building the foundation. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, let's dive into your book. So, I have some questions.
Yeah.
This book speaks powerfully to women of faith, and particularly in the beginning, you talk about that it's particularly for the LDS community, but the message feels very universal. So, who did you write this book for, and who do you hope that it reaches?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I had been praying quite a bit about things and had felt like I was going to write this book for a while and like it was God's will. But the day that like the revelation came, like, you write this now, I was like, okay. And I had every intent to write it to a general audience. I think in general, I do. I think in general, I do. I don't feel like healing needs to be, specific to a religion necessarily. God loves all of his children. But when I was praying, I just felt really strongly that there were some things that I would need to address that were specific to those healing from betrayal trauma who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so, as such, I did write it with them in mind. And there's some things in there that are specific, like I think every church struggles with things like um, clergy being informed and being able to help us when we're in their offices and things. But I did have the specific insight into what that's like in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I go into that and in fact, I wrote a letter that a lot of people signed and sent to like the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and things like that. And with that, I don't know what they did or plan to do,
I
but
was going to ask about that. I was like
yeah.
curious.
Yeah, I don't know what they did or plan to do. I haven't received response on it, But what I know is I was prompted to write it. And it felt empowering for me and for other survivors to sign our names to it. I didn't want it to be anonymous, which was a little tricky then to get. So, we still got quite a few signatures. But, anyways, that's a little off topic. I apologize. I've kind of gone off on a side thing here, but yeah.
Yes. Well, what I hear is that yes, there are some particulars to this specific denomination, but there are the principles really are applicable to general faith community.
Absolutely, they are. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah. So, in the book, you share a lot about your own journey of healing. So, and you kind of shared a little bit about revelation to write your book. What else was it like for you to write your book? How did the process of sharing your story shape your own recovery and faith?
Hmm. I would say it was one of the most healing things I've ever done, but it was also challenging. So at the time, and I'm divorced now, and I don't look at. I think when I first began recovery, I looked at it like, oh, if I'm divorced, this isn't a success story, And actually, I see this very differently now, like very differently. Whether or not I stay married is completely separate from my own recovery and how I'm healing. But at the time, I mean, I wrote it during one of the most challenging periods of my life, living with an active addict who was struggling with severe mental health issues. I could tell things weren't right, and it was one of the absolute hardest things that I've done to have done that during the period. But it also gave me this like purpose, if that makes sense. And it brought, like, I was struggling with a lot of pain, I was struggling with a lot of heartache. But when it was like, okay, I have this project that's God assigned to do, And so with that, it's going to be okay no matter what, because this is a bigger purpose than me, if that makes sense. Like it'll hopefully
Mhm.
help people. I don't know if it has, but I hope it has. And if not, it helped me to write it.
Yes. I mean, really, what I hear in that is letting go of the outcomes.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah. You did what was the next right step and let go and let
Yeah.
it be what it needed to be. Yeah. So, kind of getting into some nitty-gritties, how do you describe betrayal trauma? What are some of the first signs that women can look for in their own bodies and emotions to kind of trigger like, something's going
hmm
on?
Yeah. First, I'll just say that one of the first books that I read on this subject was by Dr. Kevin Skinner.
Mhm.
And I think you reviewed that one, right? It was like your
Yep.
first one or something. Yeah,
hmm
it's such a good book, Healing Trauma from Sexual Betrayal. But, I had been in this for like 17 and a half years and without tools, without understanding, without knowing. And by the point where it was like I had reached another discovery and I was not well, I was in full trauma, didn't know what that was. And so, I just remember when I had read Dr. Skinner's book and I just had tears pouring down my cheeks. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. In that book, it has tons of statistics about how people are struggling with betrayal trauma. And I would say it was one of the most freeing things to understand. So if people come into this space and you're like, something's wrong, I'm not myself, maybe take notice. That can look all sorts of different ways. I mean, it could be appetite disruptions. It's almost always got something, psychological or emotional going on. And that could be we are hyper like alert or we are very distressed, but it could also be on the other end where we're super depressed and don't want to get out of bed. And it can be this big in between where we're, maybe even doing all of those things. But there could be sleep disruptions. Hypervigilance is another one. And what that means basically is we're always scanning for danger. That could be something like we're going to be obsessively checking phone histories or internet histories. Or for me, a lot, it was like I'm at a restaurant with my husband, my then husband, and what is he looking at? Who is he checking
Mhm.
out and that kind of thing. And so all of these things though, I guess the thing I want to say the most is if anybody's listening with ooh, it's bringing tears.
Mhm.
um if anybody's listening and thinking, I thought I was crazy, I just want people to know you are not crazy. This is a normal physiological response. And for such a long time, we didn't talk about these subjects. We didn't understand what betrayal trauma was doing. We know more now. We can do better as a society, as a whole. We can just do better. So I
Mhm.
guess that was a long way of answering your question.
That's exactly what I wanted. And I just want to second that. As you were talking, I was back into when I was in that place of not knowing what was happening, and I was in it 20 years, and I really thought something was wrong with me. Down to my bones. I was like,
Yeah.
I must be pathological. I even started looking up like neuropathy and or like being a neurotic, like
Yeah.
I was like, I think that might be my diagnosis that I am neurotic. And the irony was, as soon as I had a real name for it, I mean, then it took me another 5 years to like find real help, but I had a name for it and I was like, okay, maybe I am not crazy. Then when I found that support, it was like, oh, and the answer wasn't to pathologize that and to say, well, if you just did this, and this, you're going to get better. It's accepting the trauma, processing the trauma, feeling the trauma
Hmm.
safely.
Absolutely.
Hi, I want to interrupt our podcast just for a quick announcement. I am hosting a webinar on December 11th to talk about the process of betrayal trauma healing. This is a free webinar. It is open to all women who have experienced betrayal in their intimate relationships. You're going to find clarity and understanding about the trauma that you are experiencing and what next steps are possible to find healing and clarity and reconnection with yourself. I will drop the link in the show notes. And if you're watching this after December 11th, click the link anyway, and you will be able to register and get the recording. You're welcome to have it. But those who are watching live are going to be able to be entered into a bonus drawing, a free one-on-one coaching session with me. So I really encourage you to be able to come and show up live, and it will be a great supportive environment for you to start exploring what betrayal trauma is and how it relates to your experience, and really finding clarity in yourself. So hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you for relating. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Well, let's talk about these 4 A's. I just want to say I love how simply that you put these into this category, and that they are 4 A's: addiction, adultery, abuse, and abandonment.
Hmm.
So, how can women discern if these patterns are present in their relationship? And I just want to also acknowledge this is not a simple question, and this is going to be a overview, right?
Hmm.
Because it takes a long time to even speak the words that these are happening.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I'll start with the four A's and just say with the four A's, I one time spoke with, by the way, Jeff Stur, who I love him as a therapist. He's just so good. And he discussed the four A's with me. And I loved the things that he taught me in that. And basically, there is a power differential when they're in play. Almost always, the four A's are accompanied by some sort of lying and hiding. And the person who's perpetuating the harm, they have knowledge that we don't have. We might make different choices, if we really understood what was going on. But the thing about the four A's, and I appreciate you bringing them up because, when people read my book, I was surprised because it's just a little section in my book about the four A's, but people resonated with that. And that is probably one of the things I've gotten the most feedback about was that little section. And I remember for me understanding that it was like, oh, maybe what I'm going through is severe. And what we find is that if there's one 4A present, there's typically more. So, for instance, someone going through betrayal trauma, right? We might be dealing with an addict. I don't know, we might be dealing with an addict. So there's 1A, addiction, adultery, whatever our definition of that is. There's often abuse in it. I mean, there is at the very least gaslighting, that almost all of us experience, and I can't say all, but almost all of us who've experienced that do. There's abandonment in that, that can look all sorts of different ways. By the way, that could be something like financial abandonment or controlling the finances, or it could be what I experienced a lot was like emotional abandonment.
Yes.
And yes, and things like, okay, there's this house that we have, with all these children, and the full weight of that was on my shoulders. That was like never something that was really shared. And I would have loved to have shared that, by the way. But it was like this full abandonment. What I like to say how it feels is it's like I'm drowning. I'm like in the water drowning, and he's standing there with a life preserver and just will not throw it. And so, anyways, but when we experience one of them, I mean, and that can look different in all the different spaces. So if somebody even is a alcoholic or something, the likelihood of abuse, physical abuse, is higher.
Yeah.
So it's somehow they all correlate, and it's empowering to know that we can, or what's going on. And I appreciate you bringing up that there is a pattern going on, because we're not talking about one-time events. Somebody accidentally had a slip with pornography or something, and they're looking, and they realize, and they come in, and they own their stuff, and they repent, and whatever. That's not the kind of thing we're talking about. These are destructive patterns that harm us, that are ongoing, that are typically hidden, that they're just very, very painful. And instead of looking at it like, I mean, I remember the first time I realized that there was like, I caught pornography, and I was like, whatever, this is one time thing, go
Yeah.
talk to the bishop, don't do it again. And then, just to hold myself in compassion, it did happen again and again and again, because I was not made aware of the pattern that was ingrained.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about the pattern in the three parts. Can you
Mhm.
elaborate a little bit on the three parts? So it starts with,
Yes. And actually this came later for me.
mm,
Um and so, and we teach this, so with Her Wings Unfold and TS 12 and on, our step four is very different in that they can work a traditional step four where people are looking inward and seeing things, but a lot of it is based on inventories. And so one of the inventories we recommend doing is for people to understand the pattern and where 4A's fit. And so how this looks is it's like it builds, it builds, it builds, it builds, it builds, and then it explodes. And then it's like this cooling off period where there's often um, love bombing. It's like, or even for me, it was like this huge relief that there was an explosion, because I know now I'm going to get a little bit of peace, but when we look at that pattern, it is intense, that it's like, no, this isn't just a one-time thing. And then the thing is, when we're going through the supposed peace, it's fragile peace, because we know that there is going to be this, it's already starting to build, 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 build again to an explosion.
mm. I that really resonates with me. And in when you're in the pattern, it is really hard to see it. I would do that pattern. And even I love how you talk about that fragile piece and even the relief of like, okay, at least there was that explosion and whatever that looks like. I want to also say it doesn't have to look extreme or yelling. The explosion can be an implosion,
Yeah.
where it's like a quiet explosion where it's like, oh, and now whatever that looks like, right? It's just mine didn't
Mhm.
look very overt. It wasn't a lot of yelling and throwing things. It was a very covert,
Mhm.
cold kind of a thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that you point that out. It can look very different.
Hmm.
And like you're saying, the explosion could actually be something like them acting out an addiction,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then when they've like released those chemicals or whatever and they're coming down, but then they've got this shame and so they're going to
Mm.
start building up again. So it's this
Yep.
never-ending cycle that is unrelenting and exhausting to live in, especially for those of us who don't have the information to know what is going on.
Yep. And I can say I didn't know every single time that my husband would act out, but I remember always being suspicious when he would show up with kind of this love bomby honeymoon phase. And I'm like, did you just complete a cycle? Like I even kind of knew
Mhm.
it, but I didn't know how to know it. And it just felt fragile. It felt so fragile.
Mhm.
And it felt like, okay, what am I supposed to do to keep it this
Yeah.
way? Yeah.
Yes. I know. What do I do to keep it this way? I love that you say that because that's where we come in and it makes sense, right? Because what we're trying to do is protect our safety and protect the
Mhm.
safety of everyone. And we don't, at least I did not understand how little power I had in that.
Yeah.
And that my um rescuing in those ways would just prolong the heartache really and make the process longer. And it was a very exhausting way to live. I made myself a prisoner in my own home, I say.
Yes, yes. And again, we hold a lot of compassion for
Mhm.
those women who, myself, me, looking back
Me.
at me,
Mhm.
you, right? Like looking back and
Mhm.
being like, yeah, you were just trying to protect
Yep.
your safety, your peace, and that was the best way you knew how.
Mhm.
And it does, while it does prolong it, yes, it does. It, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you know,
and also, along those lines, just to hold myself and others in compassion, is that I didn't have any tools or support to have navigated what would have come, if that makes sense. And
yes,
so I don't even know that it was the wrong thing to do.
no,
You
it
know,
wasn't.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like I learned more. I could change and do make different choices, but it makes sense actually,
Mhm.
and was the only way I knew how to navigate really extreme, hard circumstances.
Yes, because I second that. If I had tried to set a boundary at that time, there's no way. I had no support. I had no information. I
Mhm.
had no knowledge. There's no way. It wouldn't have been safe.
It wouldn't have been safe. There you go.
Yep.
Yep. Well, and even how to set a boundary.
Yeah.
I know. It's like I had
Uh,
no clue. That was such a foreign thing to me. So, yeah.
no. Which really leads us to our next question. What guidance would you give for finding that qualified trauma-informed help and a lot of times it's this traditional marriage first approach, but we're saying, you need individual support and healing. That for me was when I really started. I got to my rock bottom and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I finally started to look for real help. And that was the only way. I started being able to process the trauma and then start proactively making boundaries, choices with the support. Because again,
Mhm.
it is so hard. I couldn't have done it alone.
Yeah. I guess I'll just start by saying we started in
Yeah.
traditional marriage therapy. Hmm. It
Mhm.
was not good, I'll just say. And so I'll just paint a picture of what can happen and what often happens because we think this is the way the marriage is sick. But what is not understood is this isn't a marriage issue. This is an individual perpetuating harm. And yes, everybody comes to a marriage. None of us are perfect. That's normal. But it's different. It's like there is this immediate first aid that has got to happen, that when there's a big problem and we're looking, and eventually you can get to the point where you're like, okay, here's this discomfort that we can take care of kind of thing. But we're not there yet. So I would say for me, I like to say I paid for my own abuse in the early stages. Because what happened was we would go, I was in severe trauma. My spouse was, he would look a lot more stable because they're very practiced at this, you know, and they're trying so hard to hold on to lies and to whatever, and it serves them if we look crazy, And so for untrained therapists, and I would say most therapists are just not skilled in this when you've got,
Yeah.
let alone clergy, so
Yeah.
lots of compassion for professionals but excuse me. But what I would say is that I would look distressed, I would look upset. And what I was hoping was that somebody would understand the severe abuse that was going on, the gaslighting, that I had made decisions based completely off of lies, and that I was being made to feel crazy and responsible for his destructive behavior.
Mhm.
And really, what happened then was I would go into marriage therapy and it would be like, well, this is his part and this is your part. And it felt invalidating. It felt painful. It felt like there's this big elephant in the room and you're like addressing, I don't even know what, but it's like not the elephant.
Mhm.
It's not that, and you're like trying to make it, and what ends up happening then is for me at least, it's like, oh, well then maybe I'm flawed and maybe I am responsible. Oh, good. Then I'm going to go back and fix myself and fix everything else. And then I can come back and this won't be a problem. And of course, I did try all of that, just like everybody pretty much.
Yeah.
We work so hard at these marriage issues and making ourselves like we're talking about the cooling off period. We want to get there, but we can feel it building, and there's like we're just doing our best to make sure that we're as safe and good as possible. But it's very intense, and so trauma informed therapy is different. These days, I would say the very like, and it wasn't available in Utah, by the way, that's where I live. When I was in my recovery process, was it APSATs.
Mhm.
And I love APSATs. I love their model. They work on a multi-dimensional model. If you have an APSATs therapist or coach in your area, I highly recommend looking into that. And I can't make, promises that every APSATS therapist or coach is amazing, but what I can say is their training is absolutely amazing. It's
Mhm.
thorough and it's validating. It's really just so good what AppSats brings to the table and the kind of training that they offer. And so if you've got an AppSats professional near you, go for that. Like soak that in. That is
Mhm.
such a gift, to have someone with that kind of training. And the organization is growing. I know here in
Mhm.
Utah now we do have at least one therapist, one AppSats therapist, and I think more. So
Mhm.
anyways,
Yes.
we're
Oh,
on the route.
absolutely. And do
Yeah.
you know that I am APSATS trained? I'm an APSATS candidate. So I
Woo!
am in my supervision right now. I'm about 15 hours away from getting my certification.
Are you really? Go,
Yep.
Rachel.
Yep.
Okay, well, see,
Oh.
all your listeners can pay attention here. And no wonder you come at this with such a safe space,
Mm,
really. Yeah, because like, and you could speak probably to the training that it's different than what you're getting in any other space.
yes. Yes. Because I am traditionally trained as a social worker. I have my master's in social work. Never even mentioned betrayal trauma. I mean, I'm going through all of it and I have my degree. I'm like, well, okay, communication skills. And again, I have the DSM-4 available. It's probably 5 now, but when I was in school, I have that available to me. I'm looking at my diagnoses and, and it's like, oh, no, this is trauma. And it didn't even occur to me there was no training back then. And
Mhm.
so that's why it was really important to me as I came back into this space to get the specialized training that AppSats has to offer so that I could marry the two because I have a great foundation in social work. It's great, but to have that specialization with AppSats has been integral.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, but that makes a big difference for any healing to have the right
Yes.
training, which is unfortunately rare. Because I mean, to me, I'm looking at this like, this is 2025. Don't we know better? And really, we don't in general. We just don't.
Yep, I know. And that, I mean, even relatively new is betrayal trauma itself. And so
Yeah.
it is its own, it's growing, even 20 years ago, betrayal trauma didn't even really exist. Like, I mean, it
Right.
had, but I didn't know about it, right?
Right.
So I'm so glad there is information, there is training,
Mhm.
we're talking about it, you
We're
know?
talking about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I'm going to pause us here and end part one so that we can do a part two.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell my listeners thank you for being here and tune in for part two. And again, take what resonates and leave the rest. Thank you so much, Jenny, for being here for part one, and we'll continue in part two.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel.
Bye bye. Thanks for joining me today on the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf. If something from this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend or come connect with me online. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Rachel Strong Smith. And if you want to go deeper, sign up for my email newsletter, where I share grounded support, personal insights, and practical tools to help you reconnect with yourself. Remember, healing isn't a straight line, it's a spiral, and every step towards yourself matters. So, until next time, take gentle care.